Welcome, welcome to the final event in this year's Literary Light series, which spotlights contemporary Armenian writers and their work. It's been an absolute pleasure to host this series for a second year with the National Association for Armenian Studies and Research and the Krikor and Clara Zorab Information Center. Thank you so much to my colleague Hovset Markaryan, YALA's executive director, who makes everything we do possible and better. Thank you to Nairi Simonyan, our social media and marketing coordinator, for bringing this series to a wider audience. Thank you to the University of Nebraska Press and Prairie Schooner for co-sponsoring this event. A year ago, we hosted Break the Silence, an emergency reading in solidarity with the Armenians of Artsakh under blockade, not knowing that only 2 days later, Azerbaijan would launch a violent attack that would force over 100,000 Armenians from their homes, including writers from our community. Today, as Armenia celebrates its independence, we remember and demand justice for all the Armenians of Artsakh and the individuals still imprisoned by Azerbaijan. I struggled with how to open this event, given the significance of September to Armenians, and given the seemingly unending and unconscionable violence we are witnessing every day. As Lory Bedikian wrote in the collection we will feature today, I watched the world cry itself to sleep. But this collection, Jagadakeer, Apology to the Body, seems the best way to reflect on loss and how it lives in our bodies. On that note, I'd like to introduce Brian Turner, our moderator for today's event. Turner is the author of the memoir My Life as a Foreign Country and 5 collections of poetry, from Here Bullet to The Wild Delight of Wild Things. He's the editor of The Kiss and co-editor of The Strangest of Theaters. A musician, he's written and recorded albums with the Interplanetary Acoustic Team, including 1111, Me Smiling, and American Undertow with the Retro Legion. His poems and essays have been published in the New York Times, The Guardian, National Geographic, and Harper's, among other fine journals, and he was featured in the documentary Operation Homecoming, Writing the Wartime Experience, nominated for an Academy Award. A Guggenheim Fellow, he's received a USA Hillcrest Fellowship in Literature, the Amy Lowell Traveling Fellowship, the Poets Prize, and a fellowship from the Lannan Foundation. Brian, thank you so much for hosting this conversation.
Thank you all for having me here. It's a real honor. Before I even really begin, maybe we can all, I don't know if we can unmute or not, but we can at least raise our hands. Let's all raise our hands in celebration of Lory's new book and the work she's doing in the world. So congratulations, Lory. It's a real honor to be here and to celebrate the work you've done and the voice that you have brought for us all with these beautiful poems. Thank you all for having me here. I will, just a basic idea of how we'll do this. I'm going to introduce Lory's work a little bit. We're going to turn over, hear the poems aloud, and Lory will read some poems from the work. And then she and I will be in conversation for a bit. And then we'll, if you can, feel free over in the chat at any point to ask a question or have a comment over there. And then at the end, we'll have a time where we open up to the wider community here, and we'll be in conversation and take some of your questions as well. And I think I always like to end on a poem, so hopefully Lory will indulge us maybe with the poem to put a nice cap on the event, So I guess I'd like to begin with, I've been a fan of Lory's work for many years now. I was very fortunate to read her, get an early look also at her first book, the Book of Lamenting, which won the 2010 Philip Levine Prize in Poetry. And that book, where is it here? Here we go. Looks like this. Yeah. And, luminaries like Yusuf Komanyaka and Evan Boland, they came out and gave praise for this book. And hold on a second, I got to say, God, okay. I would like to read part of what I wrote on the back of that book. As I was fortunate to get to choose that book in a contest, and it's a real honor to be a part of the journey of this book. And in there I say, I quote, "On the back of every tongue in my family, there is a dove that lives and dies." Bedikian recognizes the genuine world of the imagination, one we inhabit but often lose sight of, a world with floating hieroglyphics of flame, where sometimes one must empty your pockets of the noise you carry and count olives in place of coins. This is a beautiful book, and if you don't already have this one, I would encourage you also to get this book, because there's a conversation that is beginning that will over the years to come. We'll have, if I live long enough, hopefully I'll get to see many more as they come. And I love watching a writer's thought develop poem by poem, but also book by book, and seeing where that thought goes. Several of her poems have received the first prize book award in the Pablo Neruda Prize for Poetry as part of the 22 Nimrod Literary Awards. And her current book won the 2023 Roz Shoemaker Prairie Schooner Book Prize in Poetry, published by the University of Nebraska Press. Her work is published in Gulf Coast, Tin House, Los Angeles Review, Northeast Review, Boulevard. Like, it goes on and on, like all these magazines we all want to have our poems in, you know, and the Adroit Journal, Literary Matters, Orion, Wildness. It was featured on Pádraig Tuama's Poetry Unbound podcast. And her poem, The Mechanic, is included in the anthology Borderlines, Poems of Migration, which is out from Knopf in 2020. Her poems recently appeared in Massachusetts Review's Revisiting Woman and issued 50 years later. So you might check that out. I believe that might be online. I didn't double check that. Yes, it is. Okay, good. Lory's manuscript in progress received a 2021 grant from the Money for Women / Barbara Deming Memorial Fund, from which she has twice been awarded a grant. And she earned a BA from UCLA with an emphasis in creative writing and poetry, and an MFA from the University of Oregon. She teaches poetry workshops in Los Angeles and elsewhere, and she's joining us today from her home in Los Angeles. And I believe the family is off on a mission to a diner right now, so that we have her all to ourselves for this conversation. But maybe if we get lucky, maybe they'll come in at the end, and we'll get to a quick to see her family and her loved ones as well. I'm very excited to start this. Lory, I could continue on and on. This new book of yours is masterfully put together, and the poems are just beautifully right. Just from a pure artistic point of view, and thinking in terms of craft, every poem is just so finely and deftly attended to, and the words and the language are just beautifully crafted. And as someone who's been trying to do that for a few decades myself, I admire the work you're doing. But the vessel, to make a beautiful vessel is one thing, but what does the vessel carry? And these poems carry great spirit, and there's a mixture of the personal, the intimate, the vulnerable, and the historical, and the larger cultural. And this intersection of these creates a kind of necessary conversation that I'm very honored to be here and be a part of. So if you don't mind, can I hand it over to you, and we can hear some of these verses in the air?
I'd be honored. Thank you, Brian. Oh my, am I overwhelmed. I just want everyone to know before I say all my thank yous that Brian Turner is my poetry hero. I won't say he's my ultimate hero, because then it would be, hyperbole, and everyone would go, oh boy, she's really laying the butter thick. But he is my poetry hero at a time where, it wasn't in style. It wasn't a trend to talk about Lebanon or Syria or the Middle East or whatever. Brian heard my poems. He heard my voice. Armenian wasn't an odd thing. It wasn't odd to say the word Armenian in a poem. So anyway, thank you, Brian, for everything you've just said. You have just anointed this whole reading. I want to really quickly say my thank yous before I read the poems. I want to thank Yala, Literary Lights. I want to thank Brian for everything. Of course, my poetry hero, like I said. Olivia Katranjan, thank you. Hovseb Markarian, thank you. To the co-sponsor, co-host Nasser and the Zorab Center, thank you. And immeasurable gratitude to University of Nebraska Press and Prairie Schooner, who are my saviors. And thank you so much, Brian. Again, thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here and for tuning in today. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to keep my comments to a minimum so that Brian and I can start a discussion and talk. I'll just read the poems. And if there's a a word or two that I need to say before each, I will. The tooth is dead. Oh, I am supposed to say the page number in case someone has the book. Good job, Lory. I root myself on all the time. Please do that to yourselves. Always be your own cheering squad. Okay, page 18 in the book. A few seconds for people to turn the pages. Yes, page 18. The tooth is dead. When you hear it, you don't expect to stay so still, as if it wasn't the tooth itself, but that someone, not something, was gone. Not obliterated or demolished, but lifelessness had won yet again. You don't expect that word to be used for a molar, a larger part of the mouth's structure. So much use it's given over time, pulverizing animal and vegetable both. They didn't even use that word when your father died. Instead, they told your brother expired, like a driver's license, a parking meter, machines maybe, but not your father. Expired is not good enough to say what's done when he is done. Past, passed away. No, nothing is adequate sound-wise, so dead must have been coined for its monosyllabic, mean, quick, consonant D sound to consonant D sound. We can't even say it quick enough to be done with it, because who would want a word that lasts so long, an eon to express such a concept? Even in Armenian, we say merav, which means he, she, it died. Almost beautiful, not long enough, softer than dead. First, using closed lips. The latter brings the top teeth to the bottom lip as if biting the lip, the act of disbelief. Did someone think of that? That the body should say with the mouth, the word through the act of the mouth should express what death means? Even saying they died, Meran, even that sounds like a lovely name of one you met long ago and could never forget. A night where you kept tripping on everything while laughing through the sips of cognac. What was this tooth to you anyway? This losing a part of yourself for good almost seems like an insult. You recall those sculptures, gorgeous, Rodin in rain, real and boundless, an ear chipped off from an earthquake, how the ivy twists against the torso while you stare at its imperfections. The sculpture never dies, even if destroyed. And your tooth? And your father? There are moments flung across the galaxies that have their importance rooted in the empty spaces they leave. No sounds good enough to tell you that it's over. The tooth, the mouth, the word. Okay, page 67. And then I kind of did this thing where they're all going to kind of be in a row, the remaining poems. Okay. When your mother dies during a pandemic. The walk, and I'm not on mute, am I? No, okay, unmuted. Okay, great. That happened one time. Page 67. When your mother dies during a pandemic. The walk down the hospital hallway does not frighten you, despite masks and gloves and masks. A woman wraps her purse in a plastic bag, disinfects the soles of her shoes. Your mother, the last day you will see this room. Since when did we blow air kisses? Talk about a new norm. Your mother is about to die. Weight of wires, almost the weight of every world she has known. They say maybe a malaria drug can save the world. Could have saved her dying father from an outbreak in Syria. The TV's volume is always too high. There should be a specific word for the nerve it takes to scribble, "I want to leave this world," on a clipboard, not meant for one's last words. What is said and not said is poison no matter what. Don't love what I say because you think you should. Love what you hear because it makes you question everything. What was the point of calling something hopeful a city? What was the point in asking her questions when all she said was, I've done nothing? No flashback can fix these moments. There's nothing sweet about loss. You embrace no one. The measurement of 6 feet is your longitude and latitude, and your mother will soon be side by side with your dead father. You knew these were the last words to each other. No one cried. The hallways full of masks and gloves and masks. You went home only to hide, and the world is told to stay inside. Inside. Next page. This is easy. Page 69. Pandemic tally at odds with May. Apologies, Mother, you had no funeral. It was too close to call the priest. Shovel of dirt, flowers, strangers with masks in charge of lowering the coffin. Cyber condolences, incense. My sons face the screens. My sons face a future without most of the people I loved. The teacher calls on those who are fast, fed what they want for lunch. My sons clench their teeth. All the funding has gone to the birds, beautiful creatures, gleaming feathers, whose babies have their feathers combed by aardvarks and stool pigeons. These fledglings always get to bed on time. Postpone the checkup, the procedure, the poetry of mourning. There's a pandemonium of voices coming from a white tower full of moorfowl. Where are they all coming from? Bombs. Children and mothers died together. They didn't get a chance to contemplate as they did on school days. The forests destroyed. Their husbands already buried. Conveyor belt methods. I don't want to talk about kin, kinship, or cognac. It always ends with maps, my father's voice, my ancestors kneeling by graves. I want everyone to stand up to choir it out, even the dead. There is no such thing as writer's block. There is no such thing as writer's block. Their favorite pencil was left in their usual cafe while the chandelier doesn't give its typical shrewd light. Prison. In prison because they always wrote, even when they were told that you are pissing off the guy in charge. The guy in charge. When he was a boy, they should have given him ripe apricots, pencils. A reference to Donna Summer doesn't seem to fit the tapestry. Don't see why not. Donna Summer lived in Los Angeles. She sang, ignited, died. People still play her songs on the corner of Hollywood and Vine. Dad, did you find Mom? Before she died, she wanted to hear Elvis Presley sing, I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. But I don't know if that was ever taken care of. She never told me if she missed you. An antimicrobial resistant infection is not an easy thing to take care of when almost everything is limited, when almost everyone seems daunting with their masks and no masks and deranged attitudes. I can hear Grant Green's, sometimes I feel like a motherless child when I wash another sink full of greens. Sometimes motherhood is a well without bucket or rope. Even the blue sky still hunkers down. Next page, and this is the last one I'll read for now. And I hope we're doing well on time. I think we are. Page 71. Longevity, part pseudo-memoir, part commentary. My illness must be my masterpiece. No clever reference today. Things are different when someone's pressing your shirts. When I abandon myself, I abandon the word. Must mean my father spent most of his life deserting himself, empty notebooks from Lebanon. My father did not take the right vitamins to save money. I'm sure of it. Changed his name from Vahan to Van for the same minimum wage. The wealthy debate on tea and how to redecorate. Sometimes I feel like being a conventional husband, so I don't have to think about the order of meals and what they contain. Maybe if I just stay quiet now that the children have stopped their joyous screaming, now that it's clear that no more money is coming in, now that each morning the ceiling is the same blank page bearing all names but yours. Fragment. Of course, that was purposely a fragment. Show me one death that is a complete sentence. No syntax either. The dead have not returned in various forms or incarnations. Maybe this is how bitterness begins. The nerve of lemon blossoms, catkins to continue. Always the sky as the unshakable backdrop. Always my mother, who maybe could have survived had she let go of all from Aleppo. In and out of the mind. What else is there? Why I can't let her go yet may have much to do with... Muriel, please don't think of me as a coward. People with newly painted shutters, crown molding, the ascots of the rooms, how they shine like the wives. Even the atriums have got attitudes. I'm sure outer space could supply even more answers. How to make it music, the bitterness. If I could become a woman again, you're damn right I would. Godmothers help me. You see, there are floorboards in a woman, and this time I'd wear the tough boots longer. The doctor smiles, says, eat more salmon. I say beans are cheaper than salmon. Maybe you can buy me some salmon. In a pandemic, you realize many things. For example, how much your hair wanted to gray. How marrying the right person is better than liquor and silicone. My father used to tell us, don't be a dead fish, zug, floating down the stream. I wonder what type of fish he meant. The doctor, the wealthy, are not the fish. They eat fish. They expect laborers to wear masks. Neither husband nor wife worry about the order of meals and what they contain. They don't offer salmon, but water. Their teeth are so white, like fishbone, bright as a supernova. Thank you.
Thank you, Lory. I appreciate that. I hope you don't mind if we just sort of dive in, and which feels a little odd. I often feel that when poems in the air like that, we just we might even just be better served just to walk out into the day and let them linger, you know.
Oh,
That's
that.
they can get the book though, and then we can all dive in and linger there, you know.
Thank you, Brian.
I wonder, do you mind talking about the title itself, and how did this book come about after you finish your first one? Then I don't know how it is with you, but I know some writers, they finish one book and it's like, well, is that it? Will there be another book?
Oh,
You know?
thank you for asking that. And you know what? This might go on for the next half hour, so everyone put on your seatbelts. Thank you for asking that. Jagadakeer, and I'm not going to assume that everybody knows or everybody doesn't know, so just bear with me while I do this. Jagadakeer, the first word, is Armenian for fate or destiny. Jagadakeer. And the last section, I'm just going to skip around and it will be okay. And I have faith in not just myself, but in all of you. Jagadakeer, the last section of this book, breaks the word down. Jagad means forehead. Kir means letter or writing. So it's the writing on your forehead. So in other words, your destiny has been written on your forehead since the day of birth. So when people, and I hope readers really get to that last section, which is called Jagadakeer in Remission. And it talks about, it's called Jagadakeer in Remission because I was in remission from my multiple sclerosis when I wrote that entire sequence. So I'm going to skip around, like I said, so bear with me. Thank you, Brian, for that question. Apology to the Body, the second part, is an old poem. It's in this book. It's called Apology to the Body. It's an old poem. And so I just said this the other night. This book is sort of, it feels like a collected, but you're not supposed to say that until you get to like closer to the end of your career. But it feels like a collected because after, and thank you so much, Brian, for even bringing the Book of Lamenting into this whole conversation. But after the Book of Lamenting, so much happened. I didn't know that giving birth and then, 3 deaths and political upheaval and injustice in the world and so much can just make you go, yeah, we're just going to go to the library and sit down on the ground and be peaceful and everything's going to be okay. And everyone's dying in my family and around the world. And it's overwhelming. So I didn't have a second book ready to come out because I thought, I can't write a book. My mom's dying. Oh no, first my dad was dying, and then my mom was dying, and the world is crazy. And my boys are asking me, why is everybody saying stuff about shootings? And, it's insanity. It's complete insanity. And all of a sudden, this feels very, very like, oh, am I that privileged that I can go, oh, I really want like a glossy cover next time. No, there's like, I'm thinking about how am I going to pay my groceries? Anyway, so this was not really, it was sort of a collected of the last decade and a little bit more. It was, so that's how the title came up. Jagadakeer in Remission was written. And then I had always had Apology to the Body as a working title. And then I said, how do I bring it together for myself? Let's say I decided, screw the world. I'm just gonna write this book for myself. For myself, I said, I'm gonna put Jagadakeer next to Apology to the Body. And that's how it came about. So I'll stop there because I could keep going.
Oh, sure. And I wonder, this is like a desert island question a little bit, but it's more like a sea question. And that instead of trying to go down to the level of like one poem, but if you went further down like the micro, if there was one line or maybe 2 lines that you feel are like the beating heart of the book, like if all the rest disappeared, you would have to keep those couple of lines. Do you know where that would be in the book?
Yeah. You know what? Before I say that, and this will give me time to show that I have no idea.
Sorry, it's a weird question. I totally, yeah.
Are you kidding, Brian? I adore you. I admire you so much. And I love that question. I'll just say that that's why I think I picked the epigraph from Adrian Rich from the Phenomenology of Anger, which, like, I hate to say like words that like some people may be hearing like, this is my first poetry reading. So I've got a quote from Adrian Rich that sort of is at the beginning of the book. And it says, even with dry sticks, I can't get started, even with thorns. So I think like that's why I chose those words because that's such a great question. There's so many lines and that's why I worked so hard on the poems. But I think maybe it depends on the mood of my day. You know what? I'm going to pick the last lines of Apology to the Body because those lines can be looked upon so many different ways where I say, and it's on page 40, I can't even see. I got to get my eyes checked. It's either 43 or 45. I can't see anything. Anyway, I say, believe me that we began together and I will mend each sheath of myelin, reverse the dark that grows behind my eyes. And the reason I'm saying that, because there's so many others that would work way better to answer your question, is because I think I want to tell everyone, believe me that we began together. Even though I'm talking to my body, it could be the body of humanity, the body of Armenians, the body of women, the body, each sheath of myelin is the specific, whatever. Reverse the dark that grows behind my eyes, depression, agony, grief, mystery, secrecy, we can reverse all that whatever grows behind my eyes, your eyes, our eyes, we can reverse that,
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Lory. How about, let's see here, if I can read my own writing. I wrote this question down, but I might have to relearn it in real time. But can you talk about and share some of your thoughts on the intersection between lyricism and history, and how do you balance the poetic impulse towards beauty of language with the sort of raw and sometimes painful realities of living? You know?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It kind of, that question reminds me of something someone asked me at this other reading that I was doing then, and they said, "Why don't you have notes at the
Oh.
back of your book?" And I said, it's kind of related, right, Brian? It's like, why don't you have notes? And I said, well, because like I don't want you to worry about where Baalbek was or is, sorry. And I don't want you to worry about the bulbul, and I don't want you to worry about, you know, the exact longitude and latitude of where Aleppo lands on the global, you know, on the atlas. I want you to just, like, does Rodin explain, you know, at the bottom of his sculpture, the reason why I have a more triangular, you know, shape to the ear is because, no, you just look at a Rodin, you just, it's art. You know, does you know, Black Sabbath explain why they wrote a song a certain way? Are there like, well, yeah, okay, some CDs have it. Well, okay, so okay, sorry, Brian. I'm gonna try not to be myself. So it's kind of like endnotes. You write the poem, you read so that you can learn what you're allowed to do. You know, we read books and go, oh, if Adrienne Rich can have that attitude, so can I. Oh, if Lucille Clifton can do that, so can I. Oh, if Yvonne Boland can write from a human platform, even though she's a total feminist, so can I. So you allow the so can I's, and you use music. And then when you have to refer to the historic or the political or whatever, you don't, I mean, you don't, at some point, you don't even have to remind yourself that you're not a historian or a politician. You're just using it. These are just like, they're just tools. They're just like our supplies. It's like the clay, the beads, the one that you get all your supplies. You go, yeah, right now I want to refer to Burchamud. Right now I want to refer to that place in Paris. But it's not, I'm not here to teach history. I'm not here to I'm not a teacher of the past or the present. I'm here as an artist. I'm a poet. And this is the music I need to heal myself. And this is the music that I give others to hopefully help them. I hope my poems can be of service, that kind of thing. I'm going to stop because I can keep going.
Oh, yeah. Well, on a related
Did I
note.
answer your question, Brian?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's connected in a way we could maybe continue the conversation with Ada in the question in the chat has a question that maybe we'll circle back to if we don't get to it enough here. But I was thinking structurally with the maybe in the interior poems, not book lengthwise, but how do you, because there are many formal sort of structures that you've leaned on or used as vessels.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, how do most of these poems come about for you? Is there like an image that comes into mind, or is there something someone said, or is it usually through language or image? Like how do these, what's the seed that then starts them? And then do you already know, do they already sort of come into a form, or are you thinking form first and then, you know what I mean? I'm wondering how these things get made. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that question. Well, you know what it is? Sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's something that's haunting me. And then I think it's like, you know, I have, you know, mental challenges. And so I go, okay, write it down, write your mental challenges down, your spiritual challenges, whatever. And so they come to me and I begin to write, and I allow anything I want. You know, this is the one place where no one can dictate what I do, what I say, who I am, how I embrace my femininity along with my masculinity. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me who I am. Don't tell me what to say. So it's the one place where I allow myself. At the same time, in terms of formal elements, you know, you get the MFA, you start reading books, and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And so when there's madness, you know, it's that's why I did syllabics in one poem. It's because it's so insane that you do this measure, you do this form to kind of control it, because it's too much. The feeling is too much. The lyricism even can be too much in a poem. So you give it a couplet, you give it a tercet, and then you kind of like, you allow yourself to play a little bit. You're like, oh, you know, I don't want to get too, I mean, I'm trying to propagate a feeling. I'm trying to further not an agenda, but further a feeling, further a way of feeling, further a style of linguistic music. So when I'm doing that, first I write the feeling down, and then I say, oh, no, 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 we need a little bit of control, because I gotta try to communicate this to another reader, whether it's 1 or 10. I don't care how many. I just want one person to get something. And I mean,
Yeah.
I had an uncle in Lebanon, and he wrote, and he had like a stack of notebooks, and my dad goes, look, Harut Amo ninch karere, which means look what Harut Amo has written. And he had a stack of notebooks, and it really didn't matter to him if anyone ever read. He would refer back. And so he sat down in Arabic and read to us, and he read to us in French, and he read to us, and because in other countries, people are very smart and they learn a lot of languages. But so yeah, the formal comes later for me, usually.
Yeah. Oh, what you just said made me wonder, do you write solely in English? I don't know. I apologize for not knowing if you're writing also. Do you write first in English, or do you write?
I love that question. No, I write in English, that's for sure. I'm so not gonna fake it. But Armenian comforts me and haunts me.
Hmm. Yeah.
I hear my grandmother's voice so much. And she spoke to me only in Armenian. I shared a bedroom with my grandmother till I was 16 years old. So my first language, this is not a lie, my first language was Armenian. Because my father said, which means you're only going to speak Armenian in the house. So the first time I was allowed to like immerse myself in a language, in an English speaking environment, was kindergarten. So my first language was Armenian, even though I lived in Daly City, San Francisco. So it's kind of weird. But so when I write in English, but some feelings can only be expressed in Armenian. So it's only in recent years that I'm allowing myself. And Brian, I have to say this to you and to everyone. You were the one with my first book when you chose it for the Levine Prize. And I had certain lines, and you said, why don't you write this thought in Armenian? I think it would be beautiful. And I was scared. I was scared. I was scared to, I was scared. And you gave me a lot of courage back then to do that. So it's taken maybe a decade. Now I allow myself to use Armenian words more. I don't write in the well, I needed a new computer. It's a long story. I didn't have the font.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder, while you were talking, you gestured off to the side when you were talking about books, and I could see some of them in the background there a little bit, but I know there's more in the house and all that, and they're everywhere. And so I'm wondering, what are some of your influences that your grandmother, I was already imagining, even though you said you write in English usually now, but I'm assuming that because Armenian is your native, that we first learned that all music after is informed by the music of the initial language. And but I'm also wondering what influences are on the shelves and books and writers whose work are watermarked into the poems that we're hearing and reading of yours.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, like Adrienne Rich, obviously. And then the camp or the school or the little club that was taught to me, the Levines, the Komanyaka, Lucille Clifton. And, there was a big push for Wanda Coleman to be heard again, but she, as I know, she was from LA. So when her sonnets were finally there was a big deal made, I was like, oh, this is great, because I love Wanda, Miss Coleman's work. And but I go back to there's so many, Adam Zagayevsky, And
Are there Are there any, oh, sorry, are there any writers that, because I notice sometimes when we writers get together and we ask this question, usually we'll talk about sort of known writers that we have as a common currency or a common knowledge of.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Wondering, is there somebody out there that we don't know that we should know?
oh yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, probably people at this reading will know Shoshani Kurginian. She wrote, there's a book of her poems translated called I Want to Live. And we were at April Bookstore just on Thursday night, and Douglas Manuel and there were friends asking, is there a book I should buy? And I said, well, don't buy the contemporary stuff because we're still here and we're still selling books, whatever. But I want you to check out Shoshani Kurginian's book, I Want to Live. And they said, well, okay, tell me why you're saying buy this book. And two or three people bought the book off of April's shelves. And I said, because in 1916, post-genocide, Shoshani Kurginian, okay, she probably came from a privileged background because I don't think it was, if you came from a certain place in that time period, you could not have these black and white, well photographed, structured photos taken. And so she had privilege, but instead of writing about privilege or writing about tulips, she was writing about women, the poor. She was writing about how, she was a feminist. And today it's not that hard to be a feminist, well, so to speak. But I mean, back then she could have been beaten up by anybody for even speaking words that are strong as a woman. So that's one writer that I go back to sometimes, and I just kind of open her book in a quiet moment and I think, wow, that was pretty brave to write all of these back then.
Thank you. I'm looking over in the chat and I see, and I apologize if I miss any here, but one of them I see is there a connection between the first poem, Ode to Their Leaving, with the last section of poems? And I'm wondering as well, is the elegiac impulse sort of an overarching connector too?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, thank you. Oh, Ida, thank you for that question. Yeah, I would say that there is. I think there's a connective tissue working in all the poems, whether I like it or not, sort of thing. I was just telling my husband, William, that I said, oh, I didn't even realize that I wrote that word, and that word is also in the last section, whatever. So yeah, Ode to Their Leaving, it's the parental figures, and the immigrant daughter. And why do you not say it? Say who you are, say daughter. That's what I say in Ode to Their Leaving. Why do you not say it has so much, it's such a heavy question. Why do you not say it? Oh, because you're the girl. Oh, because girls are told to be quiet. Oh, because you're the female in the family. That's how you grow up when you're in a male-dominated home. I had two older brothers, father who was a minister, though he was not a chauvinist. There were moments where, I was always told by my mom, girls don't speak out loud. Girls don't give their opinions. Please don't shout, you're a girl. Please don't raise your voice, you're a girl. So you can tell, I mean, I've been fighting all of that to get to this moment. So yes, to answer the question, I do believe that there's a major connection between Ode to Their Leaving and the last section, because in Jagadakeer in Remission, I ask, what about the ants? What about the ants, the females? While the uncles in Lebanon or Syria were writing poems, what were they doing besides, twisting the dish rags and wringing them dry? Did they want to sit down and write something? Or were they too busy getting rocks out of the lentils?
Yeah. Is there a connection between, this is also a question in the chat, is there a connection between the first poem? Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I repeated the same word. There's someone says, Lory, I admire you for writing about loss during the pandemic. Were you writing regularly while dealing with loss? And can you talk about your process of writing immediate or through raw feelings?
Thank you, Nancy. Hello to all of you. I love you all very much. Can you talk about your process of writing the immediate or through raw feelings? Well, I did, pandemic sucked. Sorry, I mean, sorry for loss of better words. The better words are here right now. I can't think of can't be eloquent. The pandemic was terrible. Yes, I wrote through the pandemic. How can I say this quickly? Oh, so I think we're on time. Yeah, I can say a little bit. My children had never been on computers. I believed in dirt, flowers, gardens, outside, like I'm like, get dirty. My husband, don't let them get dirt on the floor. Why? They're boys, let them get dirty. So they had never been on a computer. We canceled television when they were born. Suddenly they had to go to school on a computer. So their whole thing was, Mommy, how do you turn it on? How do I type my name? And I thought I was going to lose my mind. My mom died March 5th, 2020. The week that everyone was fighting over toilet paper. I took Tylenol. I'm going to be fine. And my mom died on March 5th, 2020. The pandemic was so weird. I can't even say nightmare, because how can you call it a nightmare? You're in your home, you feel you're basically safe in your home. But anyway, yes, I wrote because when my mom died, she said to me, you have to be brave. And I said, I am brave. And she also said, I've done nothing with my life. When your mother tells you on her deathbed, one of her deathbeds, there were many deathbeds, when she tells you I've done nothing with my life, it kicks you in the behind. It kicks you, and you can go two ways: total depression, medication, depressed, feeling sorry for yourself, or I'm going to kick ass. I'm going to kick gas in her honor and all the women who never got to do what they really wanted to do because they were either washing the dishes, figuring out the meals, wiping the kids' butts, or whatever. So I'm going to write it. So the entire pandemic, yeah, Nancy, I wrote like almost every night, every single night. Can I talk about my process of writing the immediate or through raw feelings? Well, I just allow myself to write. I know most of what I have in my files, it's all, unsculpted. It's just garbage, but I allow myself. I don't care if it's cheesy. I don't care if it's like cryptic. I don't care if it's, I know no one will publish it. I don't care if a journal publishes it or not at first. And if it never gets in a book, it's okay. I need to do it. Not every artist published everything or gave a exhibit of every artwork they did. So there's a lot more I could say, but I'll stop.
I think it's that need to, because not only the poems finally crafted, but when I was first introducing, when we first started the conversation, that's what I was trying to get at, is there's like a necessary fire that, and hearing you say that whether published or not, you had that compulsion to turn to the page and to put language or to house the imagination of like this life, all this stuff that's happening. It can feel that in poems. And if you don't mind, let's turn to the poems. And can you read a bit more for us before we turn it back over?
Sure. I could
And
read more.
thank you for this conversation, Lory. Yeah.
Oh, Brian,
Sure.
lifetime of gratitude. Grateful forever to you. I'll read, okay, why don't I do this? I just read this the other night and it sparked, I'm shushing myself. Page 9, theorizing Bahan's departure. But what if the black hole is home? What if where he lives now multiplies song? I'm imagining that sand doesn't burn even in the brightest hours. The zenith can be viewed without damage. Mother, let's not fear entrances and exits. Instead, shred the photo album, make space for his new childhood, which is everywhere at once, resembling the wind-blown shore they buried his brothers upon. Lebanon galactic, because it's all he knew. Cedars their own type of kin, lined on roads that know no differences of seeds, bullets, coins. Everyone back from diaspora they never asked for. Maybe the black hole of the sky, the light years of the mind, are the only way to be swallowed up, released, transferred into a constellation summoned. The sun unnecessary, the zodiac, its outstretched words finally giving us, in starlight, omens, signs. Mother, maybe our lesions are gold. Oh, I can't hear you, Brian. Did you say something? Shoot.
Sorry. I don't know if we can all unmute or one way or another. If you just want to raise your hands, let's raise our thanks to Lory today for spending time with us, sharing your work and your thoughts and how it came to be. And I hope everyone, if you don't have the book already, that you'll get out and have a chance to. And I encourage you to read the poems in your head, but also to read them out loud with your body so you can feel the music of these verses. Olivia, can I hand it over to you at this point? Unless there's anything else you want to say, Lory?
I mean, it's not really appropriate at the end of the reading, but Brian, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this. And thank you to Yala, and thank you to everyone. And if there's anyone that I forgot to thank, I probably need to thank you the most. So thank yourselves and just know that I'm very, very grateful. And I want everyone to follow their dreams. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Lory and Brian. This has been such an inspiring conversation, and it's just lovely to be in a Zoom room with so much love. Thank you, Lory, for sharing these poems with us, for writing them. I'm sure they will linger with all of us, as Brian said. You can purchase Jagadakeer, Apology to the Body, at Yala's bookshop.org storefront, and if you haven't, I highly recommend that you do. Thank you so much, Brian. I'm so grateful that you've brought so much thought and care to these poems and to this conversation. Thank you again to Nasser and the Zorab Center for partnering with us to host this series, and the University of Nebraska Press and Prairie Schooner for co-sponsoring this event. Historically, the Armenian community has not had a dedicated platform to support our authors and literature. And so I'm honored we'll be hosting this series, Literary Lights, again next year to showcase exciting new publications. If you'd like to support our programming, you can donate at our website, armenianliterary.org. We have a lot more going on over here at Yala. If you're a writer or translator in need of financial support for your projects, apply to any of our 3 grants for creative writing or literary translation, both from Armenian to English and English to Armenian. Applications are now open until the 30th of September. You can find out more on our website. Also, please join us for the Emerging Writers Showcase, our annual showcase on October 13th, featuring the mentees from this summer's mentorship program and the winners of our Young Armenian Poets Awards. They will be announced soon. Details will be on our website. Thank you again, everyone, for reading, for moderating, for being here with us. Happy reading, happy writing, and much love to everyone.